And so this here is on the autonomy of some knowledge by Kurt L. Sylvan in analysis. I think this is forthcoming, so this is recent work. And as always, my first time reading it, I am not fucking endorsing it. But let me know. And if you have questions, I will do my best to answer it as we go. And here we go. Introduction. J. Adam Carter's great new book, Autonomous Knowledge, argues that a kind of epistemic autonomy is necessary for knowledge. All right, what the fuck is epistemic autonomy? Is this like some sort of freedom notion? More specifically, Carter defends the, quote, the need for an autonomy of belief condition on propositional knowledge, a condition, the satisfaction of which is neither entailed by nor entails the satisfaction of either a belief condition or, importantly, an epistemic justification condition. Okay, so you get to believe some shit, you don't need to justify it though. Private knowledge? No, I don't think anyone argues. Well, people do argue for private knowledge. This is saying that you can believe shit without having to justify it. You can just believe stuff on faith. A little later in the book, Carter puts the claim more strongly, suggesting that his autonomy condition neither entails nor is entailed by any epistemic condition on knowledge. You see, no condition on knowledge means that you're taking shit on faith. So this is a faith-based thing. I even justify my Morian claims, where like I can argue, I have argued in published that why I say I have a hand and I die on that hill. Not everyone does that. Now, in that tradition, also there's something called hinges, and you just accept the fucking hinge. And so this is very much in contemporary philosophy, where you just have things you accept, and like I have a hand would be considered a hinge, and that is what bases the rest of all your knowledge on. But we can discuss that if we get there. Okay, this stronger claim, which I will call the main claim, is really the bold new idea in the book. Carter describes the idea as revisionary and suggests that we need an update of epistemology in light of the fact that the nature of cognition is rapidly changing via the latest science. Faith-based epistemology, it literally, I find this hilarious. They're like, this is the grand new idea. It's literally faith-based. Like, we've gone backwards. I mean, like I said, things, all that's old is new, but this is literally faith-based epistemology. Because what's the difference between saying there's no epistemic justification and saying I'm taking it on faith? You tell me. Carter defends the main claim in Chapter 1 via a series of variations on the true temp thought experiment. Yeah, if you guys know true temp, it's somebody who can just tell what temperature it is by something in their head. He then offers an externalist account of the autonomy condition in Chapter 2 after maintaining that internalism about epistemic autonomy is a non-starter. After these key chapters, Carter explains in Chapter 3 how the autonomy condition predicts the existence of some unrecognized forms of epistemic defeat, considers how his view might extend to knowledge how in Chapter 4, and seeks to understand the value of autonomous belief in Chapter 5, where he takes a surprising turn toward a Kantian view inspired by Kierkegaard's work on self-constitution. No fucking shit. You have a faith-based theory and you have to go Kantian? Like, I'm so shocked. Oh my god. Yeah. Like, oh my god, you went with the most like rationalist version of like religious thinking, and your epistemology is faith-based. I'm like shocked, I tell you. In this critical notice, I will focus on arguments and ideas in chapters 1, 2, and 5. I will make 3 sets of criticism and end with some questions about the place of autonomy in epistemology. Firstly, and most importantly, I will cast doubt on Carter's defense of the main claim in Chapter 1. I will argue that the autonomy condition follows from familiar conditions on knowledge and virtue epistemology and is better explained by views that are more consistently Kantian than Carter's. Yeah, so I wonder what this virtue epistemics is going to be, but we'll see. More generally, the author will suggest that the condition follows from a proper basing requirement on reflective knowledge. I will also raise some doubts about the way Carter sets up the argument for his main claim. Even if he were right that the autonomy condition is independent of a justification condition, I think he doesn't do enough to show that it is independent of a de-Gettiarization condition. What is virtue epistemology? Good question. Reminds me of William James' Will to Believe. So virtue epistemology says, well, okay, look, it's not so much there's like ways you can go about making it so that you're someone who knows stuff. So you can train yourself. You have good habits. in learning about the world. So you study science. You become someone who is a practiced skeptic. You gain good virtues in understanding the truth of things. You don't just believe stuff because it got showed to you. And it's not just the justification. It's that you have cultivated a virtuous epistemology, virtuous reasoning when it comes to the way the world is. And because you have cultivated a healthy skepticism and understanding of what we learn in the world, then you can understand what knowledge is, because you have cultivated the right sort of virtue, the right sort of habits, the right sort of ways of understanding the way the world is. And that's how you get knowledge. It's not like knowledge is like given to you by justified true belief. And anyone who's been here knows I fucking hate justified true belief. It's that you have cultivated the ability and the skill to determine what's true and false in the world. Reclusi says, 4:30 a.m. Do I go to sleep or do we keep pushing? All my marks have been approved. I have 2 weeks off. What do you lot think? As always, I've said this. We've got a number of people across the world here. I always say go to sleep. Like, go to sleep. My stream is not worth it. These, you can check the VODs. I mean, if you want to hang out, I do always appreciate people being here, but your health is more important than my fucking stream. But like, yeah. Unreal says, I don't know how anything about this particular argument, but Course Guard is a smarty. Yep, that's true. Because say it might be good. Yeah, take no responsibility before I say how tired or drunk. Yeah, we've got a lot of those people. You don't want to check a VOD. No, and we also have tired and drunk people here quite often too. And they apologize, but as long as you're not an asshole, I really don't care. And again, people who don't speak English as their first language, or you're drunk, as long as I can figure out what you're saying, that's all that matters. I don't care how drunk you are. Energy says, I believe virtue epistemology makes sense if your claim is that people should use reliable methodologies for arriving to truth. However, I need to know how epistemic virtue is defined before I believe it. Yeah, exactly. That's it, like exactly right. So that's where it gets in. And what the fuck a virtue is has always been a problem for virtues in general, not just virtue epistemology. But like in that tradition, like it's just like, it's not a bad idea. It's just transferring the sort of skills from ethics and being a good person into being a good knower. And so that's right. Recluse says, I'd never be a dick. I'm just suggesting my philosophical views might not be expressed with the precision you like. Perfectly acceptable. Perfectly acceptable. But I mean, some people do, get a little bit more loose when they're drunk and tired. And we may time you out. Also, if you piss off Vipers, you may just get the ban hammer. But, yeah. No, that's not you? All right, we'll see. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, so we were finished that paragraph. I'll then explore whether Carter is right to claim in Chapter 2 that an internalist account of epistemic autonomy is a non-starter. I'll suggest that Carter doesn't consider all the options available to internalists, especially when we consider more Kantian forms of internalism. I will also suggest that if Kantian internalism is really incompatible with Carter's view, which is not as obvious as it may seem, it is preferable to his view. Finally, I'll respond to Carter's attempt to show that Sylvan account does not explain the epistemic value of autonomy. I'll suggest that Carter's Kantian account of the value of autonomy is compatible with and may need some scaffolding from this kind of account. And so notice, I think this Sylvan 2018 is probably the author of this paper that we're reading right here. So they're defending themselves. Unreal says that often when I check the author's info, he studied under Ernest Sosa, so he was a big figure in virtue epistemology. There we go. What is the difference between internalism and externalism? I heard those words before, however, I don't understand the concept fully. Internalism says, like, okay, so 1 + 1 is 2. You just know that on rational reflection. Externalism is saying there's something out in the world that is guaranteeing the truth. So, like, what's it called? So F equals ma. So like some physics. So there's the way the world is, and that is what is external in the world that guarantees it. It's not a rational reflective thing. I think this is right. I have not done internal externalism in a long time, but there's something external to us that's guaranteeing the truth of the knowledge versus, our rational reflection on it. Yeah, so you're getting coffee now, but let it focus on the paper. Yeah. Again, yeah, people come in and out of here. Don't feel bad. Okay. So energy says I'm internalist when it comes to things like math and logic, external when it comes to things like science. Yeah. So again, depends on what you count as knowledge, how you do all these things. And there's this gets super complicated. Despite these reservations, I think the book is a major advance in epistemology. It shows convincingly that autonomy can play an important role in traditional projects of analysis and epistemology, paving the way for new Kantian approaches. The task is now to understand exactly where and why autonomy plays its role. Is its role limited to the theory of justification and reflexive knowledge? If so, what then is the place of unreflective animal knowledge? Animal knowledge, really? If, as I think is true, reflective subjects can have mere animal knowledge and our animal side sometimes properly bypasses our reflective side, can autonomy have as deep a place as Carter hopes? I look forward to seeing more work on these questions inspired by Carter's book. I really dislike the way this is like breaking things down into like animal knowledge. They said they were going to talk about know-how at some point, and then so the difference between an animal knows how to run, like a dog knows how to run. I know how to run. We're calling that animal knowledge. I really dislike that. I feel that's like speciesist or whatever. But yeah. Beast knowledge, exactly, Unreal. Energy says, if animals can't think linguistically, you don't know whether or not. I don't understand how they can have knowledge in the propositional sense. Yeah. And I mean, this is problems of animal minds and stuff. But clearly, dogs can hunt. Dogs can track. And cats can do all sorts of crazy shit. So it's the more we've learned about animals and their abilities, it gets harder and harder to say that they don't have some reasoning ability. Intro is slightly underwhelming, but we keep cooking. Reclusi, guess you said you're a first year PhD student. Let me tell you something about survivorship bias. You're going to be reading the best papers. You will have been given the best papers when you were an undergrad. You are going to be reading papers selected by your professors that are very good. The rest of the shit that's out there is often just very underwhelming slop. A lot of it is slop. And once you accept that, then you will feel less bad about writing shitty philosophy papers. But let me tell you something. What you see as a grad student is still a selection of the better papers. And most of the shit is just not that good. Just is that way. Unreal says, cats can do all sorts of crazy shit. My cat's sleeping all day and around yelling for food. And can you sleep all day and yell for food and get by? I don't think you could you're anywhere near as skilled as them, Unreal Brian. Okay. 1. Against the main claim. Autonomy follows from other conditions on knowledge. Carter's argument for the main claim proceeds by a series of iterations on Lehrer, celebrated true temp thought experiment. Here's the original case as worded by Carter. It says, quote, true temp. you know that? Yeah. Well, for anyone who didn't know that. True temp. Suppose a person who we will call Mr. True Temp undergoes brain surgery by an experimental surgeon who invents a small device which is both a very accurate thermometer and a computational device capable of generating thoughts. The device, call it a TempuComp, is implanted in True Temp's head so that the very tip of the device, no longer larger than a head of a pin, sits unnoticed on his scalp and acts as a sensor to transmit information about the temperature to the computational system in his brain. This device in turn sends a message to his brain, causing him to think that the temperature recorded by the external sensor. Assume that the true TempuComp is very reliable, and so his thoughts are correct temperature thoughts. All told, this is a reliable belief-forming process. Now imagine finally that he has no idea about why he thinks so obsessively about the temperature, but never checks a thermometer to determine whether these thoughts about the temperature are correct. He accepts them unreflectively, another effect of the TempuComp. End quote. It is, as Carter notes, common to deny that True Temp has justified beliefs about the temperature, and hence to explain True Temp's lack of knowledge about the temperature via a justification condition. But Carter observes that the case can be modified so that True Temp does satisfy a justification condition. He begins with the following revised case, quote, True Temp Star. True Temp Star has a highly sophisticated device implanted in his head that regularly causes him to form true beliefs about the ambient temperature. And whenever the device causes him to form a temperature belief, P, it also compels him to believe another proposition Q, where Q is a good reason for P, and finally the device then compels True Temp to believe P on the basis of good reason P, or Q. Yeah. Who came up with the scenarios? So this Lehrer fellow came up with this True Temp, and it's been used in epistemology for the last 30 years or whatever. So it's Lehrer 1990. Yeah, it's just a standard example for these sorts of questions on if you just had information given to you that happened to be true, how do you deal with that? So I don't know a ton about this, but it's been around for, decades at this point. Yeah, and I know you're like kind of laughing at it, but like this is philosophy for you. Okay, Carter argues that the justification condition on knowledge can be satisfied heteronomously in such iterations of true temp. Now, Carter concedes that true temp star does not establish this point alone, since only a very simple reason-based justification condition is satisfied in this case. But Carter points out that further variations can be constructed in which more sophisticated justification conditions are satisfied. Here, for example, is a case in which a variety of much more demanding conditions, including some virtue theoretic or reliabilist ones, would be satisfied, but where the heteronomy intuition allegedly remains. Yeah. True temp triple star. True temp triple star, quote, has a highly sophisticated device implanted in his head. Once implanted, the device, through an immediate and highly advanced form of neuromodulation, remaps true temp triple star's cognitive architecture in such a way that while the device is still causing him to believe what he does about the ambient temperature, the process that leads to this is itself auto-integrated with the rest of his cognitive architecture. A consequence of the auto-integration is that the process that controls his temperature belief formation is not insensitive to other dispositions governing the formation and evaluation of his beliefs, but this is only because the device is also controlling these other dispositions that govern the formation and evaluation of his beliefs. End quote. Yeah, so now it's like causing him to like have a bunch of thoughts that lead to the correct temperature. Okay. Although Carter focuses primarily on showing that any reasonable justification condition can be heteronomously satisfied in such variations, he thinks his point can be generalized to apply not just to traditional epistemic justification conditions on knowledge, but to any epistemic condition on knowledge, including modal epistemic conditions, anti-Gettier conditions, and the like. Hence, he is committed to the stronger claim that the autonomy condition is independent of any epistemic condition on knowledge. So I guess they're saying you can't be governed by any of these other shitty things if you actually want to have knowledge, because anything that could cause you to like have a chain of thought like this would be something that wasn't you. Okay. Author says Carter doesn't do enough to support this stronger claim. There are two options he doesn't sufficiently consider. One is to argue that the autonomy condition follows from the best solution to the Gettier problem. Here we can consider Sosa. Okay, so I think Unreal Brian says, this was a Sosa person. Here we can consider Sosa's view that knowledge is apt belief, where apt belief is accurate belief whose very accuracy manifests cognitive competence. As far as I can see, in the true temp iterations Carter considers where true temp fails to know, Sosa can claim that the accuracy of true temp's belief does not manifest competence. He can make this claim for the same reason why Carter denies that true temp's belief is autonomous in chapter 2, namely because it bypasses S's cognitive competences. Yeah, so but does that really mean anything here? Because look, okay, so you can do it the Sosa way or you can do it Carter's way. But is this a difference without disagreement without difference? Is there any actual substance, or is it just a semantic thing? So we're calling one apt, and we're talking about a competence versus one is from the device, but the device is generating the same thing. Another Rutgers guy, right? Yeah, exactly. It's all Rutgers peoples. So I'm not entirely sure. This actually, there may be other ways to go, but I don't think this completely ruins Carter here. But that's fine. It doesn't need to. It's just given, there's other ways to go. Given Carter's reliance on concepts from Sosa's epistemology in chapter 2, it's surprising that he insists that the autonomy condition is separately needed, since it would be simpler to derive this condition from a requirement that the belief's accuracy manifests competence. Again, you see this, they're really harping on the manifesting competence. I don't even know what the fuck that means. I haven't read Sosa in forever. And so, again, I'm not even sure that this is different in the long run. To see this, consider Carter's eventual account of autonomous belief. Quote, S's belief that P is epistemically autonomous, that is autonomous in the way that is necessary for propositional knowledge at time T, if and only if this belief has a compulsion-free history at T. Okay, so compulsion-free. And so much there, me. And this is a history it has if and only if it's not the case that S came to acquire her belief that P in a way that 1, bypasses or preempts S's cognitive competences, and 2, the bypassing or preemption of such competences issues in S as being unable to easily enough shed P. End quote. Again, this is the same thing. It's like, what do you mean by autonomous? What do you mean by manifest? Okay. Both negative conditions follow, so could argue from the positive condition that the accuracy of S's belief must manifest competence. Yeah, so you're showing off your competence, whatever it is. I mean, again, this is just annoying me, but it's okay. To see this for both conditions, we should separately consider whether the formation of a belief manifests competence or whether its retention manifests competence. If S acquires her belief in a way that bypasses or preempts her cognitive competences, then the accuracy of her belief cannot manifest those competences at the time of formation. But as Carter, I think, rightly suggests, it should be possible for a belief that was acquired in a non-autonomous way to become autonomous if its retention after critical scrutiny manifests competence. This is in effect what he suggests in the True Temp Sheddable, where True Temps elects not to revise his beliefs in any way, despite having the power to, after subjecting it to non-compelled rational scrutiny, including scrutiny by which he comes to find out that the mechanism he's using is a reliable one, end quote. What do you mean by, what do you mean, computation free? Sorry, top of the evening. What's up, Dead the Wraith? How you doing? Dude, what time are you awake? Because I sometimes see you in the mornings. Dude, how you doing? I hope you're having a good day. If anyone doesn't know our buddy Dead the Wraith. Dead the Wraith is, well, I saw him playing, what was that game? Like Shopkeep or something? Go give Dead the Wraith a follow. He does looks like some variety streaming, but he's good people's, and he's got, alternative perspectives on things that you're probably not going to see in lots of Twitch. So I definitely go suggest hanging out there. You go hear some fun conversations over there too. You rarely see, you're one of them. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I was like, dude, it's a long day. Cause I remember seeing you, I woke up in the morning, you were up for like 5 hours. So I was like, dude, okay. Yeah. So yeah, if you don't know Dead the Wraith, he's gaming, he's chatting, he's having fun. And he's a good dude. Yeah. Complution? Don't know what complution is. What is complution? Did I say something dumb? I'm sorry if I said something dumb to Marshall. You have to tell me better. Yeah. Energy says, this sounds something similar to called the tracking theory of truth, which to understand his idea statement is true if it corresponds to reality, and the person who believes it would be willing to change their mind if they did not correspond to reality, which makes sense to me. Yeah. So that's what we're getting very close to, like these sort of reliability tracking machines. Now, the issue is it part of your rationality or is it part of some external device? That's the internalism versus the externalism thing here. It sounds like reliabilism in a sense. Yeah. So we're getting real close to reliabilism. So yeah. So it says something in the paper close to free will. Okay. So the freedom is, you have to have freedom to make the decision yourself. So that would be a free choice. Yeah, free will, if you will. That's fair. So yeah, we're getting real close to that. So it's just like you've got this like you just said, reliable here. So even though you know it's a good mechanism, it's not part of your reasoning faculties. So it's external to you. So again, we're still on the internalism, externalism grind. And we're talking about what makes what you know true. And so is it like your rational reflection or something else? Yeah. Lego Bit, what's up? I can think, so I am me. Further thinking of self except survival is stupid. That was caveman thinking. Myself is reference. Correct. Thinking was a mistake. What is freedom? Who the fuck knows? But that's what they're saying here. You need to be, in some sense, independent. And independence is just another word for freedom. Free from is independent of. That's all it is. So these are all related concepts. And so you're saying it's independent of means that it has no dependence. It doesn't, if that happens over there, it doesn't affect what's happening over here. That's it. Of course, yeah. Yeah, you don't have to answer nothing. It's about the paper. Does the author answer these things? This is the question here. Okay, to address these subtleties, a defender of Sosa's view can say that for a belief to constitute knowledge, it must be formed or maintained in a way that manifests competence. Again, what the fuck is manifesting competence? Satisfaction of this condition entails satisfaction of Carter's autonomy condition, hence Sosa doesn't need a separate autonomy condition. Yeah, again, but like that's the whole point. It just seems like we're shifting words between autonomy and manifestation. Outside stimulation exchange, yep. Freedom, just another word for nothing left to lose. Exactly. I mean, that's the whole point. Is you have no binds on. Nothing else is binding you down. And again, so that means you're independent of any commitments. We can make similar points about structurally similar accounts of knowledge like Wedgwood and Sylvan. And remember, this is Sylvan who's talking right here. Wedgwood holds that if you can have an outright belief in a proposition P, this counts as a case of your knowing P if and only if it's a case that you're believing correctly precisely because it is a case of your believing rationally. That is a case of your manifesting rational virtues to a sufficient degree. Yeah, again, and so you were asking, I think Energy was asking earlier, that what it is to have rational virtues is you are showing your ability to like understand things in the world. That's something that like you have a skill in. That's your ability, your virtue, showing your quality that you understand things about the world. And so that's what it is to believe rationally in this virtue-y thing. Like a photon, look at me, I will exchange, I'll leave alone and do my thing. Yep. Okay. It is open to Wedgwood to more explicitly claim that your correctly believing P must either in formation or retention manifest your rational capacities. This yields Carter's epistemic autonomy condition. Similarly, Sylvan suggests that reflective knowledge consists in complying with the objective accuracy relevant reasons for belief, where one complies if and only if one believes accurately in view of strongly respecting accuracy. Yeah, so again, you've got this another manifesting accuracy thing here, where this, in turn, involves believing accurately as a manifestation of a disposition to respond to objective accuracy relevant reasons. Yeah, so again, you've got something that, like, is independently justified. Either manifests something or blah, 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 but, like, you get the idea. One can elaborate on this by saying that it must be the case that you are correctly believing P, either in formation or retention, manifests strong respect for accuracy. This more explicit statement yields Carter epistemic autonomy condition. Yeah. So again, you're manifesting something about accuracy, which also can be cashed out as an autonomy condition. These points show that Carter should have done more to consider whether existing epistemic conditions beyond the justification condition can address his cases. But related points go for doxastic justification, since there are views that understand it by appealing to ideology from virtue epistemology, like Lord and Sylvan's, Mantell's, and Sylvan and Sosa's. I believe this is true, however, in your opinion, it's just trivially true. Yeah, well, again, we're mid-paper now. We're not quite in the main claims. We're probably going to get to the main claims. So this is all kind of set up. But like, yes, Energy, yeah. These accounts imply that doxastic justification requires proper basing on reasons, where such basing is understood as holding the attitude supported by these reasons as a manifestation of reason's sensitive competence. In Carter's cases, it won't be true that one holds the reason's favored attitude as a manifestation of reason's sensitive competence, hence it will not be the case that one has a doxastically justified belief on these views. Reclusi says, I hate the word doxastic so much I never understood for so long. I mean, it goes back to the Greek doxa, for like what we say. I mean, that's kind of how we use it for belief. It's just old. That doesn't make it good, but like, you know, it's Western philosophy. This is what we say. There's other words. Yeah, so anyone who cares. Like, so in like the word paradox, we still have doxa. So para is against doxa. So if you say something paradoxical, you're saying something against the words you're saying. That's what a paradox is, like self-contradictory. It's against the word. So paradox, against your own belief. It's my epistemological equivalent of supervenience. Fair. Yeah. I mean, when I use doxastic, I just mean pertaining to belief. Like, that's all I mean. So I don't actually put any weight on it when people say it. I just switch it out with pertaining to belief in my head. Okay. Of course, you do also have to explain what a belief is at that point. All right. So yeah, if you're trying to get epistemic justifications out of this thing, of course you're not going to do it because like it's independent. You have no epistemic justifications. I thought it meant opinions, beliefs, opinions, the beliefs and opinions. Everyone, they're like assholes. Everyone's got them. So yeah, I mean, it depends how you spell it out to Marshall, but like, that's also a fair way of talking about it, except like when philosophers do it, usually it's a little bit more formal. Okay, Carter cannot respond here as he does elsewhere in chapter 1 by insisting that he can stipulate that the proper basing requirement is satisfied heteronomously in some extended true temp case. I think belief is different from opinion now. Yeah, sure, reclusy, but again, that would be the devil in the details if you're going to like have like a theory about belief and opinion. Okay, this would be like stipulating that one can satisfy the conditions in Carter's account of autonomy heteronomously. That is impossible since it would be incoherent to imagine both that a belief was formed or maintained in a way that doesn't bypass or preempt the believer's competences, and that this formation or retention was brought about by compulsion. But defenders of the foregoing views can similarly claim that it is incoherent to imagine both an accurate belief is formed or maintained as a manifestation of reason-sensitive competences, and that this formation or retention owes to compulsion. Yeah, I mean, if there's any things in, like, I'm saying that don't make sense or you don't know, let me know. I'll try to explain. Sometimes I'm wrong. Nuclear demonstration, what's up? What does it mean for knowledge to be autonomous? So it looks like you're not getting information from someplace else and just accepting it as true. If you just say, well, I read it in this book and it's true because it was in the book, you're basing all your knowledge, it depends on that book being right. And so that would be non-autonomous information because you're depending on what the book said or what someone important told you or what an expert said. The knowledge is your knowledge because you rationally reflected on it in an autonomous way by yourself according to the best principles of what it is to know. And that's how you can tell it's knowledge because you have personally, autonomously made the decision or you made the analysis for getting it, for understanding it. Street smart, but more, yeah. As difficult to be fair, yeah. It's all difficult. It's from you, not influenced, yeah, from anything. Yep. And he says, I do believe a significant amount of our knowledge is knowledge. We rely on trusting people more knowledge than us who taught us. Yeah. So usually in these areas, like they also say, look, we know you can't learn everything. You trust everything to the degree to whatever like source you got it from. And that's all you're doing. Like, certain things on reflection, certain things because you experience them, but then everything else you treat to the degree that like it's merited. So if someone tells you something, you trust that person to a certain degree. Well, like they know that. That's not a big deal. Marcel's remark, autonomous robots. I don't know if that's a paradox. Well, that's part of the joke is like, are the LLMs now actually conscious? Like, that's the question. Would that be a paradox saying they're artificial intelligence? Well, if they're just really intelligent, it's not artificial, is it? So like, yeah. So the other is arguing for the possibility of certain forms of autonomous knowledge. Yeah, well, I think they both agree that this is important, Nuclear. The issue really is, did the author make a actual like new claim? And this person is saying, no, we've said stuff like this before. Lego says, like, walking is autonomous, humans know gravity, autonomous. Yeah. So I think you guys are getting it. So it's objective knowledge. I don't think they're arguing for objective knowledge here. I think they kind of assume it. Actually, I think it's this is just knowledge, like to core, just like whatever knowledge happens to be. They're just being like, yeah, this is knowledge. Okay. No, LLMs are objectively not conscious. Well, that was more of a joke to DeMarshall because we're saying, like, if we said they actually are, then what would be artificial about their consciousness? Yeah. Okay. So I think we're on the same page. Okay. So yeah. So the problem here wasn't so much that the author's disagreeing with what they called the main claim. The author saying this has been said in other ways before. Yeah. And so they conclude this section with, so there is, it seems, clear a problem with Carter's argument. Whatever prevents true temp cases from undermining his view will also prevent it from applying these views of doxastic justification. Yeah, so you still kind of have to play with what's going on in someone's head. Even though if you want to say this stuff is autonomously governed, maybe it's more complicated. I'm not sure, but that's what they say. Internalism and externalism about epistemic autonomy. Let's consider chapter 2. One thing that happens here is that Carter quickly dismisses internalism about epistemic autonomy. He gives two kinds of arguments. One is that internalism gives the wrong predictions in allegedly possible cases, such as the following. Psychological twins star. Anne and Beth are psychological twins. They are identically mentally constituted. Both believe that Cicero's scribe was named Tiro. Anne believes this because she read it in a book. Beth believes it because scientists want her to be psychologically identical to Anne, so they brainwashed her until her psychology, as it pertains to all matters of Roman history, matches Anne's exactly. Okay, end quote. But I think this case is either not possible as described, or if it is possible, that there is no reason to deny that Beth has knowledge. One kind of internalist would claim that when Anne believes this proposition with doxastic justifications at T, this is due to her beliefs manifesting her rational capacities at T. They would also claim that these features supervene on intrinsic features of her mind. Alright, so it's hitting all of our hated words. I appreciate that. We've got supervene, we've got doxastic. What are we going to do? This philosophy. Yeah, the big boy. Exactly. If it is true that Beth at T star is an intrinsic mental duplicate of Anne at T, then it must also be true that she believes this proposition in a way that manifests her rational capacities. If so, then although it may be true that Beth only ended up doing this because of her interaction with the scientist, it is not true that her belief is symptomatic of brainwashing. Yeah, so even if you brainwash something to be in some other state, that doesn't mean they weren't thinking once they got into that new state. They were thinking. What's up, Rohit? We can instead treat this case like some irrelevant influence cases are treated by theorists who claim that rational belief and knowledge is still possible in them. The sense in which Beth believes just because of her interactions with the psychologist is like the sense in which, according to Stanley knows the value of democracy only because of his ideology and upbringing. Hence, if the case is supposed to be one where the belief manifests brainwashing, we can deny that it is possible, assuming that it is a conceptual truth that brainwashing beliefs cannot be knowledge. A happier description of the genuinely possible case lurking here is that Beth comes to have a rational belief and indeed knowledge, despite the fact that her belief is held in some sense only because of an irrelevant influence. Where am I from? I'm from New York. Yeah, so again, this is Blade Runner. What's her name in Blade Runner, who didn't know she was a replicant, and she had all these thoughts that like were put in her head. She was brainwashed and given the niece of whatever, his niece's thoughts, and so she had all these memories from the niece. Was she thinking? Yeah, kind of. She was given a starting spot, but they were real thoughts and real beliefs, and then she had kind of gone with them and was thinking just like the niece was. So it's like, you can't say she wasn't thinking, even though the source of the thoughts wasn't her own experience. Yeah, I'm from New York. If one likes the autonomy condition, one should conclude that not all irrelevant influences undermine its exercise. If one doesn't like that conclusion, one shouldn't be so sure that rational beliefs require relevant autonomy. Yeah, where are you from then, Rohit? For it is, actually, don't dox yourself, don't tell me. For it is possible for brainwashed subjects to have some knowledge that they wouldn't have had were it not for the influence of their brainwashers. For example, if a dutiful subject in North Korea seeks to learn about events through state TV, they can gain some knowledge about restricted subject matters where it speaks the truth, for example about local weather, even if their general trust owes to patriotism. So much for Carter's first argument against internalism. His second is a spin-off of a standard objection to hierarchical accounts of autonomy. He writes that the most promising internalist approaches tell us that the autonomy of a given belief is ultimately a matter of the relationship that the belief bears to one's higher order attitudes, such as those that feature in the process of reflective identification. End quote. He then suggests that if first order beliefs can be heteronomous, so can the relevant higher order attitudes. While I agree that this is a good objection to hierarchical approaches, internalist approaches needn't be hierarchical. Lego says, I'm thinking of the experiment where a family raised money where they with their child. A monkey with their child. Had to stop because the baby human started acting like the monkey. Yeah, I mean, people have tried to raise monkeys with humans before. It doesn't work out. Like, the monkeys don't develop like we do. And yeah, and you don't want the baby to be learning monkey stuff either. You know, it's just... There's generative differences between the species. And so it's like, yeah, what actually is going on is different in the way we are set up. It just is. But I mean, it's like, what counts for knowledge there? The baby was 3 when they stopped. Yeah, you probably want the kid to start acting a bit more rational when they're 3. Believe me, I know. My brother got a 3-year-old. And the kid's a little bit of a monster at times. But that's, terrible twos. Toddlers are monsters. They just are. Okay. Yeah. All right. A more promising internalist account would be a Kantian one, which sees epistemic autonomy across time as a matter of complying with the norms of theoretical reason and one's processing of the evidence at every time, where such compliance consists in manifesting one's rational capacity at every time, where one's rational capacities are understood plausibly, author thinks, as intrinsic properties of one's mind. Yeah, 3 natures. Yeah, Rob. But like this, yeah, so this is what Lego's discussing, where you've got rational capacities built into the mind that are different across like humans and animals or monkeys. So it's like, yeah, this is kind of the issue, is this Kantian setup where we've just got rational machinery here. Exactly. We've got a Kant feels good man going on there. Reflective knowledge is then a matter of accurate beliefs that manifest rational processing, which is necessarily epistemically autonomous. Their time is something that others cannot understand. Well, we're just using it as an index here. We're not... I mean, in the course of this paper, it's nothing too terrible. Viper says toddlers are the most violent demographic. They can't do any real damage, but they haven't yet been socialized to have impulse control. Yeah. I don't agree with that, Lego. Why don't you think if you don't feed your cat on time, believe me, your cat will let you know. Your cat understands feeding time very accurately. Yeah. Well, yeah, but they also understand time because they get hungry and they will, and if you are late to feed time, they will know. Not time, it's hunger. No, because they will know when they're going to get fed. So I was cat sitting for some friends once, and I would feed the cats at 6:30 in the morning, and the alarm would go off at 6:30 in the morning. I'd get up and feed the cats, and the cats would try to wake me up. They would wake me up early, and so after like the 3rd day of them waking me up, I put the cat in a headlock, and I waited there till the alarm went off. And you want to know what happened the next day? The cat didn't wake me up, and as soon as the alarm went off, then it started acting. But as soon as the alarm went off, I went and fed it. Okay? The cat understood the alarm very well. It understood the time very well. Time is in next week. Okay, yeah, sure. The cat does not understand our, like, long-term planning stuff. Thank you for the follow, Eerie. Yes. But, like, it's not exactly clear what you're saying. Like, the cat doesn't understand time. Of course it doesn't understand, like, next month. The fuck does a cat understand about months? Or weeks, for that matter? That doesn't mean a cat doesn't understand days and time of day. What is this, Vipers? You think at least you're not sure? Yeah. I don't think the cats have beliefs in the human sense, but in terms of routine, they get into things very instinctive. Yeah, well, I'm not sure we have beliefs like we think we do either, so... If you're me an hour late because of daylight saving times, how the fuck can I read a clock, John? Exactly. Like, they understand exactly what time of day it is. They don't give a fuck about, like, our changing the clocks. They understand now I'm hungry. No. They understand what time it is because you can see them, like, get antsy beforehand. They are if you feed them at all times of day, they will keep meowing for food. You anthropomorphize the shadow of your dog, so you have no clue. This is what I'm talking about. And are you really so sure that we have some grand understanding of things either. Of course we have clocks and we understand how they work. Do we understand time? No. But do the animals understand our clocks? No. But again, the clocks are doing one thing. That doesn't mean we understand time any better because we have clocks. We just, break it down much more rigorously. Okay. We know dumb as bricks as well. I guess you agree with me on that? Yep. You'll also understand if you hang out here reclusely, I do not care about most theories. I'm promiscuous with my theorizing. Just whatever works. Okay. Lego says the cat sleeps 18 hours a day, wakes up and kills stuff, and comes back 2 days later needing food. My cats are outside and a lot of mice in the barn. Yep. But do they know when to go hunting? They understand what they're doing. They're not that dumb. Cats are not dumb things. I had cats when I was a kid. One of my cats escaped. My mom freaked out. She called the police. They were like, lady, your cats haven't been gone even a few hours. We don't go looking for a person for another few hours, even if they're missing. And so she's freaking out. The cops won't help. The cat showed up the next morning at the front door when my dad was going to work. It wanted its food. It was just sitting on our front steps, waiting for my dad to leave for work. It was okay. The cat knew exactly what it was doing. Recluses, can we acknowledge that you expect me to be a complete scumbag when I said I was drunk? I've been half decent. No, I do not expect you to be a scumbag when you're drunk. I was saying it's okay that you're drunk. I said it was okay. We've had many drunk people in here. That's not a problem. I didn't expect you to be a scumbag. I wanted you to know I was okay with it. Mark says, time is really the weirdest thing ever. My telecom prof asked me how to think of how satellites or global network work, and you gave up. Yeah. And if satellites move fast enough, actually, that they have to account for relativity. The clocks on the satellites will go wrong because they'll slow down because they're moving faster than things on the Earth. You're drunk right now. Exactly. It is okay. Yeah. Okay. So what are we doing? So we were talking about how Kant, with these structures of reason, actually fit the account better. Yeah, atomic clocks. Okay, this kind of account fits better with the Kantian story about the value of epistemic autonomy Carter tells in the last chapter. Moreover, it is unified and helps to explain why the conditions in Carter's view matter. Carter's view grounds epistemic autonomy in something negative, believing in a way that does not bypass or preempts S's cognitive competences. But something positive explains why this condition is met when it is rationality. We shouldn't be confused here by the fact that the negative condition is in some broad sense historical. It is true that whether a belief manifests epistemic autonomy depends on why one holds it, but when I believe autonomously, this why picks out my reason, which sustains my belief through my cognitive spontaneity at the very time it is held. The history of my belief doesn't refer to the past of my belief considered as a mere occurrence in the world, but to the rational basis of my belief. In the first instance, we would speak here of history only in the way that we speak of priority in metaphysics. Quartz clocks merely in every electronics device. I'm out of beer and y'all are mean for being drunk without me. I'm sorry, Ra. I'm sorry. I apologize for not buying you beer when I was in Canada. How do they sync? Well, we have to sync quartz clocks usually. Reclusive says, just because Kant was mentioned, it came to my mind. When you have time, you should read Vellman's paper on love, one of my favorite Phil papers. It's wrong, but it's great. Hey, we can read it on Philosophy Roulette if it's short enough. Viper says, they don't move fast enough as they're far away enough from Earth's gravitational field to have appreciable effect on time. You really have to be going at a fraction of the speed of light at a single figure denominator to experience relativistic effects. That you are not going to experience them. But one of the fun things about it is GPS. The GPS signal satellites will go wrong within, I heard it was 2 minutes. It only takes 2 minutes before you are appreciably different in where the GPS will tell you. So you could just be off a few feet or a few meters for you non-Americans. It only takes 2 minutes for it to be a few meters off. And so you could notice if the relativity was not accounted for because of the distances and how fine all of that stuff happens. So yeah. Okay, yeah. So Vipers is on top of this shit. Like before, when you stop reading, can you say stop reading and talk yourself? No, I can't. It'd be too hard. I would try Lego, but I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Recluse says also, question for you, New York Chat. I'm struggling to fully make sense of how externalism and epistemic autonomy is epistemic autonomy, but I think this is due to the fact that I'm not fully understanding what epistemic autonomy is. Does my confusion make sense at all, or am I just being dumb? No. You'd have to read the book that this paper is talking about to get the full understanding of epistemic autonomy. We went very fast over it, so it's no big deal. It's not relativity but gravity. Interesting. Okay. Not speed. Sorry. Whatever. One of those things. Okie dokie. Yeah. Okay, the value of epistemic autonomy. The thing about it, Lego bit, is that I'm just doing this, if I have to be super formal about everything, it won't be as much fun for me. I have to just kind of spout off when I'm going. So yeah, 3. The value of epistemic autonomy. Let's consider Carter's discussion of the epistemic value of autonomous belief. Carter rejects pragmatic and instrumental explanations of this value and confines his attention to non-instrumental explanations. Drawing on a conceptual category introduced by Korsgaard, he suggests that certain extrinsic properties of autonomous beliefs explain their non-instrumental epistemic value. In particular, the fact that these beliefs contribute to epistemic self-constitution is what gives them their non-instrumental epistemic value, according to Carter. Carter takes this value not to be derivative from familiar epistemic values, such as accuracy or knowledge. Hence, on his view, autonomous beliefs have extrinsic but non-instrumental epistemic value that is not derived from a relation to other epistemic values, besides epistemic self-constitution. It is noteworthy that his explanation does not look to the history of a belief, but rather forward to its role in self-constitution to explain its value. Epistemically autonomous beliefs are part of the larger activity of epistemic self-constitution, whose value flows back to the beliefs. All right, that was a weird paragraph. So basically they're saying just because it's autonomous, that is just playing into what it is to be a good epistemic knower, and that's all it is. It doesn't go to anything else. It just sort of feeds back on itself, and that's how it is to be someone who knows shit. This view is attractive, but I think that the view in Sylvan that Carter criticizes can incorporate much of what is good about it. To bring this out, let's briefly review this view. On this view, truth is the fundamental epistemic value, and all derivative epistemic value is explained via some connection to respect for truth, which has a distinctive kind of derivative value suggested by Herka. And just my cards on the table. I fucking don't like going by truth. Like, truth is the fundamental epistemic value. I almost cringed when I said that. I was like, don't say that sort of bullshit. So it's like, I don't go by truth. I go by other things. No one knows what the truth is. No one knows what the truth is. So the idea that you're making it the fundamental epistemic value means that you're making something that you don't know the fundamental epistemic value. I think this is a terrible idea. Clocks in weaker gravitational fields, higher altitudes tick faster than those at sea level. This results in a gain of approximately 45 microseconds per day for satellite clocks. Yeah. So, and that's enough to throw stuff off. It does not take very long when it comes to noticeable differences in GPS. Okay. The value of rational belief is explained in 2 stages. First, rational belief has derivative but non-instrumental value because it constitutes respect for the truth. Yeah, so it just respects the truth. But respect for truth itself gets its value by being an epistemically fitting response to the fundamental epistemic value of truth. Okay, so you're saying, well, look, the independence is just good because it's independence, and the other one says, well, the whole thing goes to truth, and so it's all just the same shit. The first part of the story is structurally like Carter's. One non-instrumentally epistemic value item gets its non-instrumental epistemic value by being constitutively related in a forward-looking way to a higher value. The story adds, however, that the epistemic value here comes from something, namely respect for truth, and has derivative value relating to the more fundamental epistemic value of truth. This is like how a morally worthy act gets derivative value from more fundamental moral value, for example, personhood, by contributing to respect for that more fundamental value, for example, respect for personhood. This is very Kantian reclusive. Yes, exactly. This is all leaning into the Kantian picture that this author is somewhat in favor of. With this story in mind, one would expect that the value of autonomous belief could be explained in a similar way to rational belief. Epistemically autonomous beliefs contribute to or manifest proper value of truth. You see, again, you can just throw the manifest in here with just in the same breath as the autonomy. Proper valuing of truth, that they have derivative epistemic value for that reason. That seems promising, but more needs to be said about why epistemic autonomy manifests or contributes to proper valuing of truth. I think the full answer is complicated, but I will give a simpler answer here, which rests on the fact that I don't think it is possible to genuinely value anything heteronomously. That means from outside. I've been saying that word a lot. Don't know if it's an unusual word. One can desire something heteronomously, but one's value are themselves part of one's self-constitution. Yeah, so you like what you like, but you can get reasons from other people, but you like what you like. Constitutively titular contiguity. Say that 10 times fast. You see, I can say stuff pretty well being on stream. I've practiced not so much to avoid the tongue twisters. But like, you know what? I'm over 2 hours and I'm starting to fail a little bit. Not dumb yet, but that'll happen soon enough. Okay, so one cannot properly epistemically value truth in one's thinking unless this thinking is epistemically autonomous. You know, as Reclusi just said, this is like super Kantian. They're saying, well, you might say you like this, but you're really doing this categorical thing. And the categorical thing is like respecting truth. Really, dickhead? I'm not respecting the truth. Like I said, I don't use the truth. Maybe I like autonomy in itself, but like the Kantian is like, well, you're doing this other thing. It's like, no, maybe not. But it is a very Kantian move, saying you're following this rule of respecting the truth. Yeah. You're doing great. Well, thank you, Reclusi. Like I said, this is only episode 651. This isn't the story Carter considers, but I don't think either story is undermined by his discussion. His key objection assumes that it is possible to manifest respect for truth heteronomously. Quote, it's one thing for a belief to be epistemically autonomous, it's another for a belief to manifest respect for truth autonomously. For the line Sylvan defends to work, it would need to be the case that the former kind of autonomy implies the latter, but it does not. In short, an epistemically autonomous belief could manifest respect for truth, but do so heteronomously. DeMarshall says, if I want to make the best autonomous robots, I want to connect it to the right time. Truth as category? I don't know what that means, DeMarshall. Yeah, I'm not sure where you're going with that Lego bed either. But whatever. Yes, things sense the outside world and react to it. Okay. Kant is categorical? I don't know about the best autonomous robots. I mean, can you get the right time with more truth? I mean, oh, I see. So, DeMarshall, like, there's always more like facts. That's not going to be helpful. Like, if your robot knows the average rainfall in the rainforest in Brazil, it knows more like categorical truth, like it knows more truths. Does it actually help it being a robot though? I don't know. You need like the specific sorts of knowledge that are important to like whatever that robot is. So I don't know if like having access to categorical truths is actually going to do you any good. It might, but like my first reaction is no. Yeah, categorical imperatives, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Well, ask again if like I didn't get it right. Just let me know. All right. So the author says when the author they're responding to said they were wrong, this author says these claims are mistaken. Heteronomous respect for truth is not possible. It isn't genuine respect if it is heteronomous. Yeah, so you're saying you didn't really respect the truth if you got your view from someplace else. That's not respect then. It is also not necessary to claim that the epistemic autonomy of proper belief implies the epistemic autonomy of respect for truth if this is meant to track an explanatory relation. While epistemically autonomous beliefs will also be autonomously truth-respecting, the beliefs are epistemically autonomous because the respect is epistemically autonomous rather than vice versa. Yeah, so like the respect had to come from you. Finally, I see no reason to agree in the relevant sense that it is one thing to be epistemically autonomous and another thing to manifest respect for truth autonomously. The former plausibly constitutes the latter. If all these claims of Carter's fail, the alternative story I've suggested explains the value of epistemic autonomy at least as well as his. I also think this story does work. This story does work that his does not do. Namely, to explain why self-legislation in the doxastic realm has epistemic value rather than value simplicator. Ultimately, our accounts are not inconsistent. My account can be used to help underpin his account and show how the kind of extrinsic, non-instrumental value he attributes to autonomous belief can be explained using tools already in the literature. Atoms at true zero are true, but nothing is that. Yeah. But I mean, I'm not worried about the limits of physics right here. Like, what do we know about the limits of physics? We don't know what absolute zero is like. We don't know what a black hole, it's inside of a black hole is like. Arguing at the limits like that, might help push your theory to see where it goes, but you're not going to convince me of any fundamental metaphysics, like by doing that. It's like, yeah, we have to discuss that in physics. No, it's no problem, Lego Bit. But it's just like, in metaphysics, there's only so much you can get out of these sorts of sort of pushing our physical theories beyond what they can do. It helps, but it's not going to help here. Yep. All right, the place of epistemic autonomy. A final concern, and we're almost done too. A final concern I want to raise concerns place of autonomy in epistemology. Here, some awkward questions seem to arise for Carter. While it is plausible that some knowledge is constituted by autonomous belief, there is a kind of knowledge, namely animal knowledge, for which it is hard to believe that it is a requirement. Suppose then that reflective knowledge but not animal knowledge requires autonomy. What is it about reflective knowledge that makes it have this additional requirement? A plausible answer suggested by Sosa is that reflective knowledge requires justification for belief when belief is understood as a disposition to judge, and that autonomy is necessary for a justified judgment. But this cannot be Carter's answer, since he has argued autonomy is independent of justification. But what else about reflective knowledge makes the difference? DeMarcus says, I guess I'm questioning how we get one time for global, but GPS and tech still contested. Well, look, not all the times we use are, in some sense, just conventions. We get them as close as we need to for different purposes. That's all. That's all. I mean, whatever time is, the way we measure it is going to be conventional. We don't have, clocks that measure, the universe as a whole. We have clocks that measure whatever is going on locally and as best we can. Little parts of the universe we understand. That's it. So it's not really contested. It's just, how do we get all of our conventions to line up in different parts of the world that act differently? Yeah. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere. Okay. Regulus sees physics is different. They answer different important questions, but metaphysics is concerned with answering different questions that science can't answer. Naturally, many render such investigations futile, but I think true investigations of reality, it matters. Yeah. I like my metaphysics. Okay, let's finish this up. We're almost done. Here's another angle on this problem. Carter's account of epistemic autonomy collapses, I argued it earlier, into a virtue theoretic view that analyzes epistemic autonomy in terms of epistemic competence. Excuse me. But the notion of competence that Carter takes from Sosa applies to animals. There are animal beliefs that manifest competence and animal beliefs that don't. There are paranoid cats and cats on too much catnip, for example. So it must be something about the nature of epistemic competences that humans have and animals lack that explains the difference. One might conjure the former competences are seated in reason, while the latter are not. This is the answer suggested by the Kantian internalist. Yet that answer is in tension with Carter's in Chapter 2. What then is about human epistemic competences that makes it suited to explain epistemic autonomy? I really dislike this. What the fuck is going on here? Like, really? Like, you're using catnip as an example that cats go, like, get drunk. Like, have you ever gotten stoned yourself, my friend? Have you ever gotten drunk? Have you ever dealt with people that are out of their mind a little bit? So, what difference, like, what are these examples? Like, maybe I'm misunderstanding the point here, but, like, yes, Kant just said that animals don't have rationality. Sure. I disagree with Kant on that point. I don't really understand our rationality, and I don't want to say the animals don't have what we have either. And in general, I disagree with Kant on many things. So it's like the idea that, like, Carter is wrong about this. Yeah. And if you're going to go full Kantian, okay. But, like, again, maybe this isn't Carter's problem. This is just the reconstruction that this author had in a Kantian sense that has this problem here. Cats like catnip, humans like oil. Yeah. I mean, the spice must flow. You think physics can answer everything? I doubt that. Yeah. Energy. Yes. Okay. Conclusion. Let me conclude by emphasizing that I think this book should be widely read despite its shortcomings. Although the book is packaged to appear applied and high-tech, at bottom it makes a fundamental contribution to contemporary epistemology that reanimates old forgotten questions rooted in Kant. While Carter may be wrong that autonomy is a novel requirement on any central epistemic standing, he convincingly shows, I think, that it is a requirement on an essential epistemic standing, specifically reflective knowledge. The significance of this point is far-reaching and invites a new confrontation between reliabilist virtue epistemology and Kantian epistemology. For even if it is true, as I've argued above, that reliabilist virtue epistemologists can claim already to make room for the autonomy condition, there is a question to consider about what best explains this condition. Given that animal knowledge is plausibly not subject to this condition, it is unclear how reliabilist virtue theory can make sense of, rather than simply take for granted the interesting fact that manifesting reflective virtues entails autonomy. To explain this fact, I think we need a more consistently Kantian theory than Carter offers in the book. His gestures toward Korsgaard at the end hold promise, but they come too late in the book. Subspecie aeternitatis, however, it is never too late for Kant. And we're done. Now what we do is we rate the paper. So if you stuck through the whole raid with Globus, or you've been here at the time, or you came in whenever, what we do now is we rate the paper. We use, because we're on Twitch, we use emotes to rate it, and you get to, everyone can use them. There are better TTV emotes. If you don't see them in your chat, you can see them below. Yes, spelling and capitalization do count here. So if you thought this paper was fun and made your brain dance, give it a brain dance. If you thought this talked about existential or artistic drama, give it a scream, a nog scream. Nog Ouroboros for deeper and ancient ideas. Nog knife for slicing and dicing arguments, usually for analytic philosophy. And Nog navel gazing, only for academics. Nog turd, all style, no substance, still pooper underneath, so like for bad arguments really. And Nog grapes for big claims that shrivel up. You can also use the global vote yay and vote nay of Twitch, and also my vote meh if you thought it was just kind of a meh paper, not good or bad. Note that I do calculate an overall score. Anything in the green makes the overall score go up, anything in the red makes the score go down, and the vote meh actually pushes everything towards the middle. Energy, thank you for the Nog navel and the nay. Unreal Brian gave it a knife, a navel, and a meh. DeMarshall gave it a knife. Unreal gave it a Nog yong, and I can't even. Yes. Reclusi gave it a knife. Yeah, I'm with you on the knives. This was, some analytic philosophy of mind. So yeah. Raw gave it a knife, a meh, and a everything is fine. Barrett says, fuck, I was updating my CV and missed the entire thing, but Korsgaard and Kierkegaard should fight to the death. Yeah, Barrett, it was too analytic for you. You would have not liked it, so it's probably better that you got work done. But thank you for the lurk then. Although they did end up Kantian in the end, you may have appreciated that. Recluse says, I think the Kantian approach is cool, but as a whole, the paper feels underdeveloped. Yeah, to be fair, this is kind of a response paper. I didn't know it was a response paper when I started, but it's kind of a response paper. Um, and so, yeah, they were defending their view and pushing back against this person who had disagreed with them. And that's okay. It may not be the most interesting of stuff, but like that's what it ended up being. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, what am I gonna say? I'm kind of with the crowd here. It's kind of meh. It's like it's just kind of a defense paper. And like, you know, I thought they did an okay job. If you are Kantian, then like you might appreciate this. You'd be like, okay, this author has, you know, sort of like continued the Kantian line of thought in this area and defended it and showed its relevance in according to like some contemporary philosophy of mind or epistemology. Like good stuff. Yeah. Like, I liked it. Not the best, it was good. Yeah, that seems fair. I mean, it seems fair. This is not bad philosophy. It's not like everyone's going to be like, bah, it's terrible. No one's being like it's terrible. So let's see. What are we going to do? We're going to give it a nog knife. I feel like, yeah, a little nog navel too. Because, yeah, I'm very much with the crowd here. We're going to vote meh. Like, I think I'm just with the other people in chat, like Ra and Unreal. So, yeah. That's all. Yeah. Recluse says, I was also somewhat unclear about the internalist externalist distinction where the author sat, but I'm fucked. And we went through it quite quick. Yeah, that's the other thing. This is my first time reading it. This is your first time, like you just get to hear it. You can read along, of course, but like, yeah. So there's nothing, this ain't like, these are already published papers. This is already in one of the top philosophy journals. This person can take a little criticism or it doesn't really matter. So don't feel bad. They mentioned Sosa, that's what's up. Yeah, DeMarshall. It's fine philosophy in general is trivially true. Yep. You may not think it's that's a good rating. It is a good rating. It's not bad. This is not bad stuff. Like, you know, not bad stuff. Like, this is okay. We've read way, way, way worse philosophy by real philosophers in real journals. And this is like all right. I did not love it. I disagree with this philosophy. But like, you know, if I had liked this, like if I was in this era, I would have liked the paper more, but like it's fine philosophy in the end.